Screeching tires, headlights slicing the New Orleans night. Debbie's hands gripped the wheels so tight her knuckles went white. For weeks, tension simmered. But nobody watching expected this. In the back seat, the silence was so thick it could suffocate. Mido's face was a blur of anger, confusion, almost disbelief. Then, without warning, Debbie slammed the brakes. The jolt slammed them both forward. She shouted, voice raw, demanding he get out right then. On the side of the dark road, doors flung open. The streetlight caught her tears, rolling silent and relentless, the kind that sting because there's no one left to hide them from. The camera jerked for a second, TLC staff standing behind, frozen, should they step in or keep rolling. This wasn't scripted drama. This was the night respect shattered. This was the night everyone stopped pretending. People always talk about the breaking point. Most think it comes with warning signs, little cracks building up until something finally gives. But sometimes, all it takes is one cruel word, one dismissive glance, for years of hope and sweetness to catch fire. In that single moment, every kindness they'd shared, every dream about what could be, disappeared into smoke. Debbie's heart had always been an open door. She wanted to believe in fairy tales, in second chances at her age, in love that could bridge an ocean and erase every regret. Mido, arms crossed, jaw clenched, stood on the sidewalk, his bag still in the trunk and his future now dangling by a thread. Was he the charming dreamer she met on the ancient streets of Cairo, or someone who'd seen a crack in the system and made his way through it with never a backward glance? Their fight blurred the line between angry lovers and complete strangers. Debbie screamed that she was done. Mido shot back with a coldness that left her reeling. Was he protecting his pride, or had he never cared in the first place? Even the crew didn't know whether to keep filming or to step between them before something worse happened. Viewers saw the rawest kind of heartbreak, the kind that splits more than one life open. Everything that came next hinged on this single roadside showdown. Was this the start of an ending that couldn't be prevented, or was it a crash landing years in the making, masked by desperate hope and ignored warning signs? Not so long ago, Debbie was glowing in ways her friends hadn't seen in years, filling every room with that shy, hopeful smile. She was the one organizing brunches again, texting her daughters nonstop, telling anyone who'd listen that this time felt different. There was something gentle in her voice when she spoke about Mido, as if she'd willed herself to believe in fairy tale endings after all this time. Their last good day almost looked like the start of something real. Debbie and Mido were out in the city, laughing about southern food and posing for touristy selfies near the riverfront. Mido joked about New Orleans' humidity flattening his hair. She teased him about his actor's ego. Even the way she looked at him was different, soft and proud, as if she'd finally proved everyone wrong. And, to be honest, plenty of people watching thought maybe they were wrong. Maybe love did win sometimes, even on reality TV. Suddenly, both of them were smiling for each other, and not just for the cameras. Even those self-proclaimed social media detectives scrolling through Instagram stories, comparing timelines, zooming in on who liked what, could see the chemistry, or at least the performance of chemistry. Debbie's followers sent emojis clapping for her happiness. Mido started replying in English, rooting for his American dream. Online theories exploded, but the vibe, for a second, felt almost sweet. But there was something off if you watched closely. The tiny moments nobody else seemed to notice. The way Mido's eyes searched every room for a phone lens, every crowd for someone who might help get him a step closer to Los Angeles, his real finish line. The compliments he gave Debbie sounded grand, but never specific. He was always touching his phone, rehearsing lines in the bathroom, trailing off mid-sentence if she asked him about jobs other than acting. Debbie brushed it off, insisting every couple had quirks. She said he was just ambitious, that he'd make a name for himself, though her friends rolled their eyes. On the surface, it was all new restaurants, shopping sprees, future promises, intimate confessions at night. Behind closed doors, friends caught him skipping out on chores, forgetting birthdays, leaving her to explain to guests why he was late again. Each time, Debbie went out of her way to defend him, to everyone, her best friend, her family, even the camera crew. Love makes you paint over cracks until all you see is the picture you want to see. But then, edges started to show. At a dinner party with her New Orleans crew, Mido spent most of the night scrolling his phone, barely interacting. All the warmth he showed for Debbie seemed to vanish in front of people she cared about. Small talk became one-word answers. Every compliment came back to his future career. That uneasy pause after he met her friends, who traded raised eyebrows but stayed silent out of politeness, was the first tremor before the storm. As everyone toasted Debbie's second chance, a question hung in the air. Was Mido building a new life, or was he building a shortcut to Hollywood? Was there something more that neither of them dared to say out loud? On social media, fans started to wonder aloud who was hiding what, and would the truth come out before somebody got hurt? You could almost pinpoint the precise second when things stopped feeling like a quirky love story and started to resemble a slow train wreck. It happened the night Debbie threw her first American Halloween bash as a couple. She'd picked out decorations, coordinated snacks, even convinced Mido to wear a costume. He showed up as a pharaoh, headpiece and all, playing up his Egyptian roots, but the joke landed with a thud. There he was, arms crossed at the edge of the living room, scanning the crowd with the air of a man forced into community theater against his will. While Debbie buzzed around relighting jack-o'-lanterns and introducing him to people she loved, he retreated further into his phone, one thumb scrolling endlessly, eyes flicking to reflections in every mirror, half expecting to spot a casting director behind the punch bowl. Minutes turned to hours, and Mido's mood went from bored to barely concealed irritation. Conversation starters fizzled. Friends kept trying, asking him about Egypt, about how he and Debbie met, about his favorite Southern food. Every answer sounded rehearsed, clipped, as if he couldn't wait for this gig to end. The room got awkward. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe it was culture shock. But nobody missed the looks Debbie shot him, desperate for a spark of warmth or pride that never came. By the end of the night, you could feel the tension from the neighbor's porch. The walk to the car was silent. Debbie forced a smile for the cameras, but inside, she was boiling. As soon as the car door clicked shut, she let it all out. The fight was ugly, back and forth, voices rising, old issues resurfacing. Debbie asked why he couldn't be more present, why he treated her friends like extras in his life story. Mido threw up his hands, said he didn't have to impress anyone, said he didn't feel welcomed. His English got sharper, his excuses thicker, his focus shifting to how she never supported his dreams enough. For Debbie, all the doubts she'd pressed down came roaring back. Was she investing in a partner, or sponsoring someone else's Hollywood audition? Each accusation met denial. Mido claimed she was the one creating drama, blew up at every request for validation. She pleaded for kindness, for reassurance. He countered with silence, the kind that wraps around your chest and makes your world emptier every second. On screen, it looked like two strangers locked in battle, yet at the same time, neither able to let go. Watching Debbie crack, you could read years of sacrifice, the job stability, the lonely nights, the dream of family around the table, all hanging by a thread. The stakes kept rising, hidden behind the reality show's confetti of quick cuts and sound bites. Every couple on this show knows the K-1 visa is a ticking clock. Once that stamp hits, you've got 90 days to decide if you'll stand at the altar or pack your bags and start over. For Debbie, the pressure was suffocating. If she called the wedding off, Mido would have to leave the country, possibly for good. If she went ahead, she'd be legally and financially responsible for him, a man who couldn't bother to meet her halfway for a single dinner party. That gnawed at her. Every sleepless night, she replayed the warning signs, his evasive answers about money, the way he prioritized acting dreams over paying bills, his refusal to even pretend at compromise. Mido, meanwhile, began pitching his sacrifices, name-dropping everything he'd given up to be here, his life in Egypt, his friends, his chance at stardom back home. He'd tell her he deserved more understanding, more agreement, more hands-off freedom. Still, Debbie couldn't walk away. Maybe it was pride, maybe fear of starting over. Maybe she thought love was supposed to be hard. And right as she seemed ready to pull the plug, Mido would flick the charm switch, A soft word, an apology, a whispered promise that the adjustment period would pass. She clung to every hint of hope, even when the cracks grew wider. Every time he'd post a smiling selfie with her on Instagram, fans would comment, "Power couple," or "True love wins." Each post kept a glimmer alive, neither of them ready to admit the truth. What viewers didn't see off-camera could fill another season. Friends begged her to see reason, to remember who she was before all this. Debbie found herself making excuses for him, blaming the cameras, the language barrier, his homesickness. She caught herself wondering if maybe she was being too needy, too American, too much. Mido's friends back in Egypt sent supportive messages, but Debbie noticed they always asked about his next big acting audition, never their wedding date. Was his attention ever truly on her, or was she a background player in the saga of Mido's Hollywood ambitions? Arguments became their routine. One minute, they were fighting over missed chores or unanswered texts. The next, he'd accuse her of sabotaging his future. Sometimes it felt like gaslighting. He'd twist every disagreement into proof she was the problem, the insecure one, the roadblock to his destiny. Debbie started feeling like she was losing herself in someone else's narrative. Would you hold out hope or call it quits before losing even more? Producers rarely cut in, preferring to catch everything on camera, but even they seemed uneasy as shouting matches grew sharper. Was this all genuine heartbreak, or was someone playing the system for airtime and a green card? Nobody knew for sure, and that kept viewers glued to every nervous glance and clipped answer. Bills piled up. The stress thickened by the day. Debbie became the sole adult in the house, cleaning up, organizing, holding her breath as Mido auditioned for bit parts nobody else even cared about. He showed less interest in building a real life and more in perfecting his portfolio. Friends who once cheered her on fell uncomfortably silent, texting only to check in, never to talk about the wedding. Everyone could see the bottom falling out. Debbie's oldest friends, the ones who never trusted this story from the start, pleaded with her to save herself before it got uglier. They warned her, straight up, that not all dreams are worth chasing, especially if you're chasing alone. Still, she looked for reasons to doubt them, not him. But what if something happened after the cameras packed up for the night? What words were exchanged offset that could either heal or destroy what little trust was left? Every viewer began to wonder if this heartbreak was even avoidable, or if both Debbie and Mido were caught in a cycle they couldn't break, no matter how hard they tried to fake happiness. The morning after the car fight, social media did what it always does best, took every messy second and spun it into 1,000 memes, jokes, and wild theories. The car door hadn't even closed behind Mido before Pharaoh Meltdown started trending. One fan called Debbie the last queen of common sense, while another edited Mido's head onto a green card, passed around faster than any of his old acting clips. Screenshots of teary confessions and silent glares started circulating across Instagram and Reddit. Suddenly, everyone was an expert, and everyone had an opinion on who started the chaos, who was using who, and what real love should look like. Team Debbie declared she deserved better. Posts flooded with dump him emojis, encouragement to put herself first, and warnings not to fall for love bombers in a pharaoh hat. A surprising number of viewers began digging into Mido's old posts, tracking his follower count, and digging up ancient headshots as evidence he was always in it for fame. Then came the memes, Mido photoshopped into Hollywood scenes, Debbie as an Oscar presenter handing him a Best Supporting Actor in His Own Life award. Someone even set their infamous car argument to the soundtrack of The Fast and the Furious, complete with screeching tires. It was equal parts hilarious and uncomfortable. But not everyone took sides. Some viewers tried to play therapist in the comment sections, dissecting every little gesture, arguing that maybe Mido's culture shock was real, or maybe Debbie moved too fast. Debates raged over who was more to blame, what each owed the other, and if TLC should even air this much private pain. Did she ignore too many red flags? Would you have kicked him out sooner? Was he ever in love, or did he only love the camera? These questions popped up everywhere, and suddenly everyone was looking for the moment, any moment, when things went from love story to lost cause. Meanwhile, both Debbie and Mido responded in their own ways. Debbie's feed shifted dramatically. Her posts turned from heart emojis and couple selfies to a string of quotes about knowing your worth, standing your ground, and the pain of letting go. Followers picked every word apart, searching for new clues. At the same time, Mido started wiping his grid. Joint photos vanished almost overnight, replaced by glamour shots, moody actor selfies, and open calls to casting directors, like he was already prepping for his solo debut. Some fans claimed that behind the scenes, producers even asked both to pause on posting anything that would give away the finale. But nothing online stays hidden for long. Within days, sharp-eyed fans noticed a close friend of Debbie suddenly unfollowed Mido, then shared a story about protecting your besties from energy vampires. Someone leaked screenshots of a DM where Mido allegedly called the show a business move, but the sender's name was blurred out. Suspiciously, Debbie removed his last name from her bio. Messages got chaotic. Was a breakup imminent? Or were they faking tension for ratings? Was any of this even real anymore, or was the audience watching a staged production for one last mutual follow boost? It got so messy. Reddit threads had to be locked for containing too much investigative speculation. Pressure built offline. Friends started showing up for Debbie when cameras were gone, sending her messages of support and tagging her in posts about freedom and fresh starts. She posted fewer and fewer details until all that was left on her grid were vague references to change, healing, and starting over. Mido, meanwhile, became more cagey, sometimes posting throwbacks from Egypt, sometimes teasing projects that never got named. Both seemed unsettled, haunted by a drama neither could outrun, even when the show was off the air. Then, just when fans were sure it was all over, a cryptic leak landed on a fan page, one that showed a draft TSA itinerary, rumored to be Mido's, with a flight booked out of New Orleans days after the blowout fight. Neither side confirmed or denied it, throwing new gas on an already raging fire. What was real? What was for show? Was Debbie protecting herself or plotting a comeback? Was Mido fleeing heartbreak or flying closer to his true goal all along? No one was ready for the next bombshell, and everyone was watching, waiting for whatever would break first. In the days after the fight, Debbie found herself staring at her own reflection, searching for answers in the lines time had etched on her face. Every single word from friends replayed in her head. She tried to collect her memories, weighing the laughs against the silences, balancing the hope she'd built with the emptiness settling around her heart. It's strange how grief creeps in, quietly at first, then suddenly with a weight you can't ignore. She thought about what brought her to this moment. She had spent years being responsible, dependable, the one everyone else leaned on. She had 2 grown kids, a cozy life in New Orleans, a steady job. But she wanted more than routines and safe bets. She wanted someone to call her beautiful, to send flowers just because, to remind her she could still surprise herself. That's why she messaged Mido back in the beginning. Why she convinced herself the time difference, the cultural divide, even the glaring age gap were all worth the shot at a second chance. At first, Mido's attention felt electric. His compliments were sweet, his ambitions almost contagious. He told stories from his childhood in Egypt, promised her a life of adventure and brightness. Debbie tried to believe they were building something lasting. She ignored the growing signs that their lives were running parallel, but never quite connecting. She struggled to tell the difference between real love and the intoxicating feeling of being wanted again. It's harder than people think, especially with a camera crew shadowing your every move and fans dissecting every blink. Sometimes it's easier to believe in the myth you've presented to the world, hoping the rest will catch up later. So when Mido confessed his Hollywood dreams, Debbie chose to see ambition rather than an exit strategy. When he brushed off her friends or left her to pay the bills, she let herself believe it was all part of the adjustment, a phase that would pass. But living in denial chipped away at her dignity. Debbie felt it every time she found a crumpled casting call under the sofa, saw his face lighting up at every LA influencer DM, or caught him rehearsing lines for auditions he never shared. She wanted to talk, to bridge the growing distance, but Mido met every plea with silence or a smirk. The affection he had shown in Egypt faded in Louisiana. He seemed more in love with the idea of being discovered than being a partner. Cameras showed one story, but Debbie lived a different one when the lights turned off. She found herself alone at the dinner table, scrolling through his old posts, wondering if she'd missed something obvious. He stopped trying, or at least stopped appearing to try. It haunted her, the realization that she was more invested in this relationship than he ever would be. Still, it's easy to villainize Mido, to stick all the blame on his Hollywood fever.
There's more to it than that.
He was a stranger in a strange land, a different language, unfamiliar customs, a new world shaped by fame and constant scrutiny. Culture shock is real, and so is loneliness. Debbie caught glimmers of the man she fell for during their rare, quiet nights, sharing tea and stories, wrapped up in a blanket of nostalgia for places neither would ever fully understand. Maybe some part of him really wanted a home, a fresh start. Or maybe his ambition never let him rest, always scanning for the next open door. Ambition isn't villainy by default, and loneliness can twist even the best intentions. Debbie saw Mido struggle, but every time she reached out, he seemed further away. She began to question if she'd built him up into a savior, a dream guy who could fill whatever was missing from her story. Every corner of her life became colored by this need for connection, even as the cracks grew wider. Fans debated if Debbie purposely ignored the obvious for her own shot at happiness. Was she so desperate for that love story she let herself become invisible? Was Mido exploiting her, or was he stuck in his own cycle of insecurity and chasing validation? The truth might just be somewhere in the middle. The hardest question, though, the one that haunted both of them, was whether their story ever stood a chance. Was this marriage ever built on real love, or just on the hope that two different kinds of longing could meet in the middle and hold? For Debbie, survival looked like clinging to scraps of affection, while for Mido, risk meant pushing for bigger dreams, even if it left someone else behind. When the last argument faded, when the friend groups pulled away and the camera crews started packing up, Debbie stood at her own crossroads. She could keep fighting for love, or she could start fighting for herself. The thought terrified her. Starting over wasn't easier at her age. Letting go felt like failure. But holding on to someone who cherished an LA dream more than he cherished her soul, well, that felt even worse. So the question remains, is heartbreak losing someone, or is it realizing they never truly wanted to stay? Did Debbie pull herself from the flames in time, or did Mido walk out with his power intact, ready to chase the next spotlight while she's left folding away the fairy tale, piece by piece, alone in New Orleans? Neither one said the last word yet, and if there's one truth in reality TV, it's that the story's never finished until someone stops watching. In the weeks after everything crashed, Debbie's world looked nothing like it used to. Her kitchen was quiet for once. No more frantic phone calls to fix Mido's schedule. No more pretending smiles for camera crews. Morning coffee with her grandkids started to feel normal again. The friends who once kept their distance began texting her invitations, little ways to say, "We missed you. We're glad you're back." Debbie started sharing new photos. No more filtered couple selfies or dramatic captions. This time, her feed offered her painting on the porch at sunset, peeking Cajun meals with her grandkids, and the small wins of daily life, without pretending for anyone else. Fans noticed the change. Her followers found relief in seeing her smile return. When Debbie posted a quote about letting go of what doesn't love you back, comments flooded in with support, lots of queen energy and heart emojis. The internet was firmly on her side now. Even in reality TV, there's a kind of justice that comes from choosing yourself after being sidelined in your own story. Mido's journey took a different turn. Within days of the final split making waves online, the photos of New Orleans vanished from his socials, replaced by sharp headshots and clips hinting at acting auditions. He filmed monologues, dropped cryptic stories in heavily filtered LA cafes, and tagged locations suspiciously close to Burbank casting agencies. He never mentioned Debbie again by name. His followers split, some hoping he'd finally make it, others calling him out for bailing on the only person who truly cared. Any trace of their old texts or shared posts was gone, wiped, as if the last year never happened. Mido maintained the same attitude from before, unbothered, focused on catching a break. He started hyping up new projects, each one more mysterious than the last. Debbie's friends laughed about it in group chats, trading jokes about his chances in Hollywood. But the reality was plainer. Their timelines had moved in opposite directions the night Debbie stopped pretending a cold shoulder was the same as real love. Looking back, all those long conversations Debbie had with her friends came into sharper focus. They'd spent weeks trying to warn her, but sometimes the heart only hears what it wants. Red flags aren't always as bright as everyone thinks, especially when you've spent years forgetting you're allowed to demand better. What matters is recognizing when choices become patterns and who stands with you when the lights go out. For anyone watching, the lessons hit home hard. If you're in a situation that twists your gut every time your partner walks in the room, that's not just nerves, it's a signal something's off. If your friends no longer recognize you, if you stop talking about anything other than the other person's dreams, all the affection in the world won't make up for that emptiness. Sometimes self-respect is the only thing left to save, and walking away isn't giving up, it's taking your story back. Both Debbie and Mido may have moved on, but neither got everything they wanted. She never got her sunset romance, but she did get her dignity. He never found instant fame, at least not the kind you'd want to keep around when the show's over. All those warnings, all those jokes about love being blind, started to sound less funny and more true. A few weeks after the final episode aired, a screenshot surfaced in a fan group, a blurry DM from someone claiming to be Mido, asking an old American friend about LA job connections. If true, he was still chasing that dream with the same tunnel vision. Debbie never responded publicly, letting the silence speak for itself. There was no tidy ending, just two people forced to own their choices. Debbie's healing wasn't a grand gesture, but a series of small, defiant steps each day. Mido's hope for a Hollywood break might still be alive, but whether the city calls him or not, he left more than a city behind in Louisiana. Past fan theories hinted at some big comeback or reunion tweet, but for now, both seem to prefer separate paths. Callbacks to those early red flags, missed birthdays, cold shoulders, a Hollywood dream disguised as love, now stood as warnings in plain view. Debbie stopped asking questions she already knew the answers to. And as for fans of this wild saga, everyone wonders if that last chapter is truly written, or if fate or a desperate producer has one twist left to drop. In 90 Day Fiancé land, the drama is never over for long. If you thought this breakup was heated, wait till you see which couple is about to outdo Debbie and Mido's chaos next.